Alright, I need to make a bit of an addendum to something I've said in the past, because I've talked about Project 06 before once or twice on my channel, and up to this point, my verdict on the game has been that it's extremely awesome and I highly recommend playing it, but I still would recommend playing the original Sonic 06 in addition to P06 for two main reasons. One being that there's a lot of content from the original Sonic 06 that's not in P06, but also because, to be honest, I had yet to, really play P06 kinda seriously. Like, I had just played through the game pretty casually before, just going through all the levels of Sonic and Shadow or whatever, and I was like, yeah, this is really awesome, but I just stopped there. I didn't, really learn the game and all of its intricacies and start to do really good runs on the levels and stuff. And now that we have the silver release of P06 that has all of the main levels from the original game, I have finally dived into P06 seriously, and really started to play this game really hardcore, and now my opinion is a little bit different on this game. Now, my thoughts on P06 are, yeah, don't even bother with the original Sonic 06, just don't. You just don't have to, there's no reason. Because while there's still a lot of content from Sonic 06 that's not in P06, quite frankly, all of that content is pretty trash. The only thing that you're maybe missing out on are the DLC levels from the original game, but to be honest, those DLC levels aren't that spectacular, so you're really not missing out on much. And once you've played P06, it is unimaginably difficult to go back to the original Sonic 06, even if you're doing a modded version with lots of improvements. That can't even remotely compare to this game. So yeah, forget what I've said in the past about playing the original Sonic 06, forget it. Just leave it in the trash where it belongs, just play Project 06 unless you absolutely must get the full Sonic 06 experience. But if what you're looking for is a fun 3D Sonic game, then all you need is Project 06. And this would be the part of the video where I go on and on about how amazing Project 06 is as a community fan project and how improved it is over the original Sonic 06, how it doesn't have the loading screen issues anymore, and how the game runs really well now, and it doesn't have a trillion bugs all over the place, and how they've added these really nice cutscenes, and the visuals are much better, and blah, 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 blah. But quite frankly, I don't need to say any of that. If you're watching this video, you probably already know about Project 06, and you already know all of that stuff. Yes, Project 06 is incredible, it's fantastic, it's amazing. We all get that, you don't need me to tell you what you already know. So instead, I'm going to do what I do best and break down the gameplay of Project 06 in excruciating detail, and we're going to talk about all of the cool changes that this makes to Sonic 06 to make it like 15,000 times more fun than the original game. First of which would be the controls and physics of Project 06. I mean, not only do they put the original fucking physics, quote-unquote, of Sonic 06 to shame, but they are honestly much better than the physics of, any 3D Sonic game from Sonic Adventure to and including Sonic 06. Like, these adventure-style Sonic games, they're notorious for their shitty, broken physics that barely fucking work. But Project 06 has much, much more refined physics than any of those games, and a lot of stuff just works the way that you feel like it should. The controls on this game are really, really nice, and the improved physics also changes up a lot of how you're able to play Project 06 compared to the original game, because once again, things like spin dash jumping and slope jumps are possible, which you could not do in the original 06. In that game, the very moment you entered the air, all of your speed instantly went down to your default movement speed, meaning big long jumps were just not possible in that game, and that was supremely lame, but now you can do it in P06, and that opens so many fun shortcut opportunities that just did not exist in the original game. But another thing I like about spin dash jumps and slope jumps in this game is that they're not ridiculously crazy overpowered like they are in Sonic Adventure 1. Like, in that game, you can use fucking slope jumps to skip the entire fucking level, but they're not quite that powerful here in P06. You can take lots of cool shortcuts, but you still have to play the game. Another thing I like about the physics in this is that it has the thing that I always rant about that I like to see in 3D Sonic games, where as you go faster, your turning radius increases. You cannot do those Sonic Adventure 1, 2, and Heroes things where you just sharply turn on a dime at full speed, which I like. It makes it feel like something closer to proper Sonic physics to me, although in this game you can kind of cheat that a little bit because when you're in the air it does not have those same properties. You can make really tight turns at high speed while airborne in this game, so that's a little bit weird, but honestly it's not really something I have that much of a problem with because as much as I rant on in many of my videos about how I would like 3D Sonic games to have a proper approximation of the original 2D Sonic physics, in this case, I'm actually okay with it not really working that way because this is a remake of Sonic 06, which is most definitely a Sonic Adventure type game. And in my head, one of the defining features of Sonic Adventure games is that they have fucked up bullshit physics that don't really work correctly. And even though Project 06 has better physics than any of the real adventure-style Sonic games, it still does kind of cheat things a little bit here and there. Like, if you're upside down and you jump, you don't jump downward like you should, you still jump upward, which makes no fucking sense. And normally I would criticize that as a problem with the physics, but in this case I'm like, that's perfect. That's exactly how that should work in a fucked up Sonic Adventure physics system. Also, another nice thing that's been fixed in this game is you can jump into enemies to damage them. You don't get hit by doing that, because that was the stupidest fucking thing ever in 06, and now it works correctly. Another good universal improvement for P06 is that every character has been sped up a decent amount, which they definitely needed because everyone in the original game was way too fucking slow for some reason. But now everyone feels like they're at a much more comfortable speed, like probably the speed they should have been in the first place. Like running around with Knuckles or Amy now is no longer a tediously slow-paced experience, which is great. But before we get into the specific character changes in the game, one thing I want to talk about P06 that it doesn't change from the original Sonic 06 is the level design. These are still very much the exact same levels from the original Sonic 06 with no to minimal changes made. Some levels do have some new sections added onto them, which is pretty cool, but for what was in the original Sonic 06, pretty much all of it is here in the exact same form. And that is actually a very good thing, because of all of Sonic 06's many problems, the level design was the least of those issues. The level design was definitely the best part of Sonic 06. I actually think that the level design in the game was generally pretty good. I already went into detail about my thoughts on the level design in my Sonic 06 review, so I'm not going to get too into it right here, but the short version of it is that I feel the level design of Sonic 06 is kind of a mix between the level design of Sonic Adventure 1 and Sonic Heroes, which I think is a very good thing, because those are, in my opinion, the 3D Sonic games prior to 06 that had the best level design, so it's kind of taking the best elements from those games and putting them together. But also, it's taking advantage of the fact that this game does a little bit more than those games did. Like, they use the right analog stick for manual camera control now, so you can have bigger, wider levels that have multiple different pathways going in all different directions and stuff, and that results in some pretty nice varied level design here with lots of different alternate routes and stuff. Of course, the issue in the original Sonic 06 is that good level design is kind of hard to appreciate when the overall game is really shitty. But now with Project 06, we have a game that plays really well, and so now a lot of people are starting to come around to Sonic 06's level design and see that it actually had some good stuff to it. That in particular is one of my favorite things about Project 06, because the original Sonic 06, I could see a great 3D Sonic game there buried under the mountains of crap. And that's why I still manage to like 06 despite all of its problems, because there is some good, fun stuff in that game. It's just that in order to enjoy it, you have to put up with all of this shit. But with Project 06, you don't have to do that anymore. There is no shit anymore. There's no more huge problems with this game. You can now just play the game that Sonic 06 wanted to be originally, and you can now see that it's a really fun game. Now, getting into the specific character stuff, I'm going to try to go through this relatively quickly because we have a lot of characters to cover and a lot of stuff to talk about. Beginning with Sonic, his biggest improvements are probably the changes made to the spin dash, because the spin dash is actually useful in this game. As I already said, you can properly do spin dash and slope jumps now, which is really good, but also additionally, They've made the spin dash work like it does in Sonic Adventure 1, so you can start doing it on the move, and it's just on one dedicated button, so you can spam dash to your heart's content, which I love to see in these kinds of Sonic games. Oh yeah, by the way, I highly recommend going into your options and setting your homing attack to Legacy style, because that makes the homing attack air dash work like it does in the Sonic Adventure games, which is very important because another cool thing you can do with Sonic in this is you can do the bounce cancel into the air dash in order to rocket down to the ground with a bunch of speed like you could in Sonic Adventure 2, which is super fun, super useful, and it's just fucking awesome. And that's another one of the things I really like about Project 06 that I feel is very in spirit to the original Sonic 06, because if you look at a lot of things about 06, it's very clearly trying to take the best elements from all the previous 3D Sonic games and put them together to try to make the best 3D Sonic game they could. Of course, that didn't end up working out, but that was clearly the idea of what they were going for, and stuff like this in Project 06 maintains that same spirit. The fact that Sonic can now spam dash like Sonic Adventure 1, but he also has the bounce air dash cancel like Sonic Adventure 2. And that's great, not just because it's taken all the best elements from the previous 3D Sonic games, but it's also adding some, coherency and consistency to the characters, where across games they have consistent abilities that you can come to expect when you play that character, and it has a nice feel to it that really makes it feel like you're playing as that character, because you have their moveset from the previous games they were playable in. And Project 06 has a bunch of other stuff like that we'll be getting to, and it's just awesome. By the way, a cool little trick you can do in this game is the double homing attack, where normally you can only get one air dash or homing attack per jump unless you hit something and then you get it refreshed. But in Project 06, there's a cool little thing you can do where you can do an air dash and then you can do a bounce, and that refreshes your ability to do another air dash / homing attack. So you can do an air dash and then immediately do a bounce into another air dash or homing attack for extended jumps, which is pretty neat. Very useful for lots of stuff. Opens up a number of cool shortcuts that would not otherwise be possible, and you can do the same thing with Shadow, by the way. Thanks to Stelmo98 for teaching me about that. He's a Project 06 speedrunner. You should go check out his stream. It's pretty cool. Anyway, the other big improvement for Sonic is in his gem system, because for one, his meter actually works, so you have to consider the meter and do some meter management, which is very nice. I love me some good old-fashioned meter management in a game. But also, they've done something very cool with Sonic Gems. They have taken into account the maturity meter, which was a mechanic from Sonic 06 that wasn't ever utilized in the final game, but now it is for Project 06, and for Sonic, they made it work pretty cool, because now all of the gems can be leveled up to 2 times via killing enemies. Whichever gem you have equipped, it's going to fill that meter below the gem, and when it fills up all the way, that gem is going to level up to the next level, and each of the gems get different benefits as you level up. For example, the purple gem, before it was used to just jump infinitely as many times as you wanted in the air. Now the way it works is you get 1 additional jump per level, so at level 1 you can do a double jump, and then a triple jump, and then finally a quadruple jump. Or the green gem, the tornado move that Sonic has. At level 1, the radius on it is fairly low and it doesn't do that much damage, but as you level it up, it has a larger radius, it does more damage, so it becomes more and more useful. And I absolutely love this additional layer that's been added to the gem system here, because it just adds another thing to consider while you're going through the levels. Because all you have to do to level up a gem is have that gem equipped when you're collecting the little light cores that enemies produce when they're killed. So that means you can kind of strategically equip gems that you want to level up while you're killing enemies, or shortly after you're killing enemies, in order to ensure that that gem is at the right level, so that way you can then use it later in the level to take a big shortcut if you need to. You know, if you need the triple jump from the purple gem to make a big shortcut, then earlier in the level you have to keep it in your mind that you need to be working on leveling up the purple gem, even if it's not actually useful in those earlier parts of the level. That is some great stuff that I love to see, and again, it kind of feels like it's taking elements from earlier 3D Sonic games and incorporating them into 06, because this is kind of like the leveling up system from Sonic Heroes. Managing each of your tools and leveling them up as needed to, as efficiently as possible, clear the level. It's fantastic stuff. Of course, another thing that's been added to Sonic in this game that we have to talk about is Super Sonic via the Rainbow Gem, which was originally supposed to be in Sonic 06, but presumably it had to be cut from the game because the game had to be cut from the game there, but now it's implemented here in Sonic 06, and it works exactly how you would expect. Super Sonic gives you increased speed, higher jumps, and invincibility. But a cool thing I like about Supersonic is that because he is accessed via a gem, you can't use the other gems while using Supersonic, which I could definitely see someone thinking of that as a negative, similar to how Supersonic can't use Wisps in Sonic Colors, but I actually think that's a really good thing in this case, because it means that Supersonic is not this almighty, all-powerful, game-breaking tool. Supersonic is something that has a downside to it, and sometimes you don't want to be Supersonic because you'd rather use the gem abilities. I mean, sure, if you want to, you can just use Supersonic right away and plow through all the levels really easily, but that's not necessarily going to be the fastest way you can get through the level, because the gems will enable you to take much bigger and more significant shortcuts, which can ultimately end up mattering more. So instead, you use Supersonic at the times when Supersonic is most viable, when he would be most useful, which changes Supersonic from this neat little funsies god mode to an actual thing that you can incorporate into normal play and really think about when to and to not use, which I love. I might even go as far as to say that this is my favorite incorporation of Supersonic in a Sonic game because of how this system ends up working. Also, another thing about Supersonic that I particularly like as just a neat little thing is that while it's not always the best choice to be Supersonic, there is one situation where you always benefit from being Super, and that is during the Mach Speed sections. During these sections, speed is all that matters, and Supersonic, of course, being much faster than Sonic, you will get through these much faster, so you always want to transform into Supersonic right before one of these. And that kind of just feels so appropriate for Supersonic, doesn't it? Because this gameplay of using Supersonic to go ridiculously fast, it feels very reminiscent to the Chaos boss fight from Sonic Adventure 1, where there, Supersonic was ridiculously fast, and it was just about going forward at high speed. And to accompany that feeling, they even added the fucking effects that Supersonic has in Sonic Adventure when you're going ultra fast, where he gets that blue aura in front of him. That is an attention to detail that I just love to see. Moving on to Tails and Knuckles real quick, I straight up think that Tails' flying in this game is the best it's ever been in a 3D Sonic game. It is so good, because you get the very free-form flying that you want with Tails. It doesn't have like that weird ceiling cap to it or anything like that from the original Sonic 06 or Sonic Heroes, but at the same time, it's not like ridiculously, insanely overpowered like it was in Sonic Adventure 1. And what's really interesting about Tails' flying in this game is that it works off of the meter that is filled by killing enemies, so you can actually extend the length of Tails' flight by killing enemies as you go, which is really, really cool. Another awesome thing that they've added is the ability for him to do his tail swipe, but he can also now do it in the air, which you can use to get some extra height and distance, and it's really fucking cool. Like, Tails' flying in this game is so fucking great. For Knuckles, he has been completely fixed from how he worked in Sonic 06. His gliding is much better. Obviously, his climbing and the detection of climbing works much better. The Drill Claw from Sonic Adventure 2 actually fucking works now, which is very nice and makes it actually useful. The only criticism I would give to Knuckles, and I have the same thing for Rouge, is that the climbing is a little overly slow, in my opinion. I think that should be sped up, but everything else is great. Now, moving on to Shadow, he has been very, very improved, because Shadow, his whole thing was he was the combat character of your three main hedgehogs in 06, but his combat was like the most shallow and uninteresting of the three characters, because all you would do was just do the homing attack and then mash A on dudes repeatedly, and that was the whole thing. He had a bunch of other stuff that he could do, but none of it was very useful for the most part. But now, in Project 06, I find that all of Shadow's different combat tools are all viable. I mean, first of all, he's been given the Spin Dash, which he did not have originally in Sonic 06, which is fucking insane, because instead they gave Shadow this little, like, 3-hit combo kick thing that he could do, which was completely useless in Sonic 06, but now it's really good, because you can do it on the move, and the radius of it is very large, and it does more damage than just a normal homing attack, so you can go up to a big crowd of enemies and kill them really, really quickly with it. The Chaos Snap has been really improved because, for one, it has an animation associated with it, and the camera's not just jerking all over the place randomly, which is nice. But also, you're no longer gonna accidentally kill yourself with it if you use it over bottomless pits, so very, very good. Additionally, the Chaos Spear, which previously you would just shoot a projectile at one enemy to stun them, which was completely worthless, now it targets multiple enemies, though it still just does stun them, which is still not that useful. However, now with Chaos Boost, that turns into the Chaos Lance, which means it now damages enemies, which is incredibly useful. If there's a bunch of weak enemies all in the area, then you can just do a big Chaos Lance and kill like 7 enemies all in one go. Now we're talking. The Chaos Blast has been made actually usable and works like how it does in Shadow the Hedgehog, but it's not too overpowered, so that's very good. Also, a thing worth mentioning is that the maturity meter works for Shadow now, so you can't immediately go from Chaos Boost level 1 to 2 to 3. You have to build up to that now like you were originally supposed to in Sonic 06. Additionally, there has been a 4th level added to Chaos Boost called Uninhibited Mode, where Shadow takes off his fucking limiter bracelets that they made up at the last second for Sonic 06 as a Deus Ex Machina. And now you get that super-powered state that he's in at the end of the game, where now all of your attacks kill enemies in one hit, you're invincible, and you kill enemies just by touching them. So it's kind of like Shadow's super form, and I could see some people feeling like it's kind of lame that Shadow and Silver don't have their own super transformations, but I kind of think that it's a little bit cooler that they have their own unique enhanced modes that they can enter, as opposed to just another super form like Sonic. Plus, of course, there's the cool narrative element that this is like a thing that Shadow does in Sonic 06, but you never get to use it in gameplay. Now you actually do. That's pretty cool. However, just like Super Sonic, Uninhibited Mode, and in fact every increased level of Chaos Boost has a downside to it, meaning you don't always just want to level up until you reach that max level, because the meter is going to drain way faster every time you level up, meaning you're going to lose your Chaos Boost if there's not a lot of enemies for you to kill to keep your meter topped up. So once again, you have to consider when is the right time to level up if you want to play as efficiently as possible, which is awesome. Also, a cool little thing that they've done for Shadow with the Chaos Spear in this game is that after shooting one, he'll pop up into the air a small distance, and you can do up to 3 Chaos Spears in the air, allowing you to get a little bit of extra height for taking some extra shortcuts and stuff, which is very cool. Plus, you can do the double homing attack with Shadow using Chaos Spear. So yeah, Shadow vastly improved over the original game. He is really fun. He feels like the Shadow that he was supposed to be now. Like, clearly a big thing with Shadow in this game was they were trying to make him be like the Shadow that you see in the opening of Shadow the Hedgehog, teleporting around, using his chaos powers, and just wrecking shop with all the enemies and shit. And now it really feels like that. Now you really feel like fucking Shadow the Hedgehog, fucking cool badass doing all this cool chaos bullshit and killing enemies, and it's really fun. As for Rouge, she's probably one of the most improved characters in the game if you ask me, not just because of what's been added to her character and her moveset, but also how her character is used. But starting with her moveset, what's great about Rouge is that in addition to all of the general improvements that come with Project 06, they've also added all of the stuff that they took away from Rouge that she had in Sonic Adventure 2. So she can now do her 3-hit kick combo, she can do the drill claw and all that kind of stuff, but she still has all of her bomb things that she can do. So that's all great, but what's really great with Rouge is that there's the one part in Kingdom Valley as Rouge where you have to find the 3 keys in the level, but that is done in Sonic 06 as just like a one-off little thing, and the keys are always in the same place. But that has been expanded upon here in Project 06 in an awesome way, because now the keys do have multiple different spawn locations, and you have the radar like the treasure hunting gameplay from the Sonic Adventure games, so Rouge is kind of a little micro bit of treasure hunting gameplay that you get to do. And her tropical jungle, what before was just a level where you fly to the end and finish the level in 10 seconds, now it's been turned into a treasure hunting level where you have to find the keys hidden around the place, which is so much better than the original game. What a great idea to give Rouge that treasure hunting gameplay, as it's already kind of what they were trying to do with her character in Sonic 06, but just so much better now. I love it. And Omega is another character that I think has been dramatically improved in a similar way to Shadow, where now you really do feel like the character in the way that you were probably supposed to. With Shadow, you feel like you're a badass with all these chaos powers, and now playing as Omega, you feel like a fucking walking tank, an arsenal with all these different weapons and ways to kill things. Because you have his lock-on lasers, which work way better than they did in 06. You have his airborne, like, shots that he can do, which also work way better. You can now move while doing all of these things, and they don't, like, freeze you in the air, which was weird and stupid. And Omega's weird little fucking, I don't even know what it was, like a shotgun blast thing that he did that was fucking terrible in Sonic 06. that has been replaced with his fucking 3-hit combo from Sonic Heroes. Fucking awesome. This is what I was talking about. I love shit like this, having these moves from previous games carry over into future games. And also, like Shadow, giving Omega weapons that he has in the narrative of Sonic 06, but not actually in the gameplay. Now he can bust out the 2 fucking machine guns out of his arms, and you can go into, like, manual aiming shooting mode to fucking kill a bunch of enemies really quickly. All these new ways to kill things with Omega are so appropriate for the character, and more importantly, they're all useful, which is great. Plus, they've also fixed the thing where Omega can fucking hover forever and fly to the ends of the earth. Now, Silver, he works generally similarly to how he did in Sonic 06. However, the various just general system improvements of Project 06 make Silver so much better. Like, he's not a slow-ass bitch anymore. Of course, they have fixed the issue with Silver's hover, where you could feather the input and make it go fucking 5 times farther than it was supposed to. But then I guess they were like, yeah, but flying past everything was one of the few things you could do with Silver that was actually fun, so they decided to make the teleport dash now have infinite range as long as you have meter to keep it going. Plus, you can also steer it now, so this kind of works as the replacement for that broken thing you could do in the original game. And this works so well, it's so fun with Silver. I mean, it's ridiculous, it's insanely overpowered, but it's great. It lets you take all kinds of fucked up bullshit shortcuts in this game, but to be fair, almost all of them are ones that you could already take with Silver in the original Sonic 06. But now it makes Silver into an actually fast character, like a Sonic character is supposed to be. And also, once again, it's enhancing that feel of, like, I'm actually playing as the character, because in the cutscenes we could see Silver, like, flying around with his psychic abilities. It's like, why can't I do any of that shit? Well, now you can, and that's awesome. Plus, another cool thing that they've added is a Psychic Blast that Silver can do to stun an enemy in front of him, so you don't have to rely as much on thrown objects or the Psycho Shock. But they've also added this Psychic Blade attack that you can do that actually does do damage to enemies, and fucking bro, this is the attack that he does in his boss fight in Sonic Generations. Again, those references, pulling their moves from different Sonic games and bringing them into this game. I fucking love it! And then on top of all that, Silver has his enhanced state that he can enter in ESP mode, which makes it so that he will now automatically stun enemies if he just walks up to them, and he'll also automatically reflect enemy projectiles, which is neat. But the big thing that this mode does is it makes it so Silver consumes less meter doing all of his psychic abilities, which makes the teleport dash even more overpowered as you can fly ridiculously far with it now, which is awesome. Also worth mentioning is that activating the ESP mode itself works as a big AoE attack that'll just kill everything around you, so very good for taking out large groups of annoying enemies. Unfortunately, though, as much as I would like to keep praising all of the improvements to the characters and stuff in Project 06, with Blaze, I can't really do that very much. She basically works almost exactly the same as how she did in 06. She has a new claw swipe attack that she can do, but it's not really useful for pretty much anything. And here's the thing, Blaze was one of the best playing characters in Sonic 06, so you could argue that she didn't really need that much improvement. But now, with all of the other heavily improved characters, Blaze kinda doesn't really have anything all to her own, nothing unique, nothing that sets her apart. She's kind of just a lesser Sonic. Like, Sonic can do everything that Blaze can do, but he can also do a bunch of other stuff too. So Blaze, I definitely think, could use some improving and maybe some changing up of her moveset, you know? Maybe incorporating, like, the boost and her hover from Sonic Rush? That'd probably be pretty cool. But then, on the opposite end of the spectrum, we have Amy, who was by far the worst playing character in Sonic 06, and now she's super duper fun, because Amy has been turned into, like, an enhanced version of how she played in Sonic Adventure. They've totally ditched that weird, useless invisibility crap that Amy had, and now instead, her hammer swing is actually useful, and you can do it while moving, which is way fucking better. It's also way faster. Additionally, Amy also has her hammer twirl from Sonic Adventure, although now you can move while using it, making it something actually worthwhile, and because there are enemies in this game that have multiple hit points, it's really good for combat. But of course, the bigger thing is that she now has her hammer jump from that game, which is fucking awesome. However, it's not been turned into a high jump in this game, as Amy does still have her double jump from Sonic 06, though is also much better because it doesn't bring your speed to a total halt when you do it, so that's good. But now, instead, the hammer jump is like a fast jump for Amy. It gets her moving faster than she can just running around normally, which Amy is still the slowest character in the game, but she's nowhere near as painfully slow as she was before, which is very good. So with Amy, the thing you're going to be doing is constantly hammer jumping around, which is super duper fun. And another cool thing that they've added for Amy is that if you hit an enemy with her hammer, then she gets a really high bounce off of them, which I think is awesome. It's very appropriate for Amy, kind of taking, you know, her movesets from like Sonic Adventure 1 and Sonic Advance of her being a very jumping focused character, and again, incorporating that here in Sonic 06 in a great way. This is just fucking awesome. Really, this is the best that Amy has ever played in a 3D Sonic game. In fact, I would probably say that for many of the characters in this game. Like Tails, probably this is the best he's ever played in 3D. Probably Knuckles and Rouge as well. Omega, I think definitely this is the best he's ever played. Shadow also. Silver, of course. Blaze, I mean, this is the only way she's ever played in 3D, so I guess that still technically counts. It's kind of fucked up when you think about it, that for a number of these characters, the best way they've ever played is in a fan-made remake of one of the most notoriously bad video games of all time. But anyway, yeah, so Project 06, really, really fun game, especially when you start really getting in there and trying to learn your way through the levels and how to play efficiently and speed through them as quickly as you can. This game is really fucking fun. Obviously, it goes without saying, much more so than the original Sonic 06, but if I'm being honest, if I were to compare this to, you know, most 3D Sonic games, I'd probably put this up there with some of the best of them. I really, really like Project 06 a lot, if you couldn't tell by my enthusiasm. In fact, at this point, I feel like this game is kind of being squandered by being a remake of Sonic 06, because I feel like it could be so much more if it tried to go beyond just the limitations of what 06 had, because so much of the cool stuff in this game is barely utilized. Like, Amy is super fun to play as in this game, and you use her once for like a minute, and that's it. In the original Sonic 06, that was a good thing because Amy was terrible to play, but now this super fun Amy is barely even used. You hardly get to play as her. Same goes for a lot of the other characters. Like, I think the Rouge and Knuckles treasure hunting gameplay, there's so much potential for that, of like, you could put that in other different levels in Sonic 06, in like White Acropolis or whatever. The gameplay, the systems, the framework here of Project 06, it's just so goddamn good. Like, this to me seems like the perfect system to make a new Sonic adventure out of, and just using it to remake Sonic 06 feels like a waste to me. Like, personally, I would prefer if going forward with the project, instead of just making more Sonic 06 stuff, I would rather they make new levels or new versions of existing levels. Like, there's those extra stages where you play a whole level as Tails or a whole level as Blaze. I'd love to see more brand new levels like that with like extra stage Amy, where you play through levels entirely as Amy and the level design is modified to specifically take advantage of her moveset or something. Kind of like a Legacy of Solaris kind of deal. Like, if that could get ported over into Project 06, that would be the coolest fucking thing ever. That would be so much more fun than adding the town missions from Sonic 06 or whatever other crap. You know, we have all of the main levels. We have all of the worthwhile content from Sonic 06. We're good now. Of course, it's not my project, and I can't tell the creator what to do with it. He's gonna do whatever he wants, and I respect that. This is just my own musings of like, damn it, dude, this game is too fun, and way too much of its stuff is barely used. And honestly, that's kind of like the only real major criticism I can give to Project 06. Like, I don't really have very many problems at all with this game. In the current version that I played for this video, there are some performance issues sometimes, but if you turn down the reflections in bloom, then that kind of fixes that for the most part, but I'm sure that'll get patched eventually. But as far as, like, problems with the game, the only real major problems I have is just, like, shortcomings of, like, things that could be made even better and even more fun that I see. Like, for example, Sonic, the B button doesn't do anything while in the air, and I'm like, you know, you could make that the air cancel from Sonic Adventure 1, that'd be pretty fucking cool, that would be better. Or, like, the grinding, I think, could be improved if it was given the mechanics from, like, Sonic Heroes, where you could lean to the side and you can hold the flip button in order to grind faster and stuff. Like, that's all I see with Project 06. I don't see problems. I see things that could be even better than they already are, which I guess is some pretty high praise for the game, because I really have very little to genuinely criticize here. The only real major problems that the game has are problems that it just inherits from Sonic 06, which is really not its fault, so I'm not going to criticize it for that. And I think that's everything I have to say about Project 06. Yeah, it's a fucking awesome game. You should go play it if you're able to. Not only would I say this is one of the best Sonic fan games out there, but I would just say, in general, this is one of my favorite 3D Sonic games, official or otherwise. Congratulations to Chaos X and the team behind Project 06. You guys did a fantastic job, and I'm very much looking forward to the future of Project 06. Thank you for watching, hope you enjoyed. I'll see you next time.